Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Joshua and this is Rooftop. In today's workshop, we are going to be painting an acrylic painting. Our theme would revolve around Ganpati. So now this Ganpati painting is going to be slightly different from what you would normally see. We have a lot of colorful themes, but this time we're going to try and go for something a little contrasty, you could say. So let's begin with our workshop. Okay, so we have a reference here. Now, when you look at this image, if you look at the background, if you look inside of the painting, you'll see that there is a lot of black in it, right? So when we paint, what we should do, or what I would prefer you doing, is that it would be better if we start blocking in. Blocking in means is that covering up the largest areas with a single color, basically. So if I see a lot of black in one area, I will add black over there, and then if I see blue in one area, I will add blue over there, and then green. So I'll be adding patches, and then I can start painting over the blocked up areas. So now if you look at this image, we can see that it has a black background. So what I'm going to do here is, this is my palette from yesterday's workshop. You can see I still have a lot of colors here. So instead of cleaning it up, what I had done, or what you can do is, in case you have extra colors lying around, is that you can just add a little bit of water onto it, and then it can remain wet until the next day or until the next time you paint. But of course, do remember, do not keep it lying around like that for too long, or else it will solidify. Now I will take my black and pour it here. I think that is more than enough. And this paint is dry in the middle, so I'm not going to get too worried about this paint over here. So if in case you're worried that, okay, it might be a bit wet, you can just test it around with your finger wherever you see any black paint or wherever you see any thick paint, and see if the thicker area is dry, then you can work in that palette. Now I'll take this black, take a bit more black, but now what I'll do is I'll add a bit of blue in this. It might not be that visible, but it's a good practice to do so. Take a bit of water as well and mix up all this color. If you have any questions regarding acrylic painting, it doesn't have to be in reference to this workshop specifically, but if you have questions of your own as well, then you can drop it down in the comment section and I will answer those questions. Now what I can do is I can just start spreading it around here, just like that. I'll start filling in the page. I'll take this black and make sure that when you are painting, now this paper has a lot of texture. If you see, I'll just lift closer, you can see that it has a lot of texture over here. So due to that, what can happen is that the paint, it will get onto the paper, but it won't go in between those little crevices that are there. Add a bit more water to it. just like that. I'll paint the left side. At the top. So I started from the center and then I'm going to go outwards, because this entire paper is going to be black. So I do not have to worry about starting from the edges first and then moving inwards. You can start from whichever area you feel comfortable. Take more black, a little bit of blue. Now, when we talk about blacks, people normally, even I had once thought that there is only one type of black, which is black, right? But what if I said there was more than one type of black? Now, black, when you mix white into it, we get gray color. But the grays, they can vary from each other. What I mean by that is that grays or color has temperature to it. Temperature in the sense that not hot or cold, but a warm kind of visual or a cool kind of visual. Now, where do we get these names warm and cool from, or how do we decide what is warm and what is cool? Now, if we see during summer, the sunlight that is there, it is a lot more orange, a lot more reddish also sometimes, depending on the time of day. Whereas if we look at winter, it has a bit of a bluish tint as compared to the summers. Now, when we look at it, it might not be that visually strong, but when we take photos, it is a lot more visible in there. So that is where the term warm and cool colors come from, or that is where the inspiration of warm and cool colors come from. Move this palette a bit. Then I can start painting this area here. Now, if you want, what you can do is, if you do not want to, say, dirty your table or anything that you are putting below, in that sense, we can take a book, any part of the book. Now, say over here I have a random book here. What I can do is I can take this paper. You can use newspaper as well. I'll put it on top here. Now, I do not mind having paint coming onto the back side of this book. Oh, what I can do is I can even use the inner part, in case you wanna, keep the book as you bought it. Now what I can do is I can just start painting around it like this. Same thing over here. And we'll go outwards, not inwards like that. We'll go from in to out. And one of the reason being that is if we do it this way, then we'll have paint come on the back side of the paper. We do not want that to happen right now. take and just retouch certain areas. But if we see, there are some patches in between that are, you know, not entirely black. So I can take a little more black over here. I'll take all of this, since I'm going to recover the entire paper again. Maybe just a bit more water. And I can go over this once again. I can go over the paper once again. Make sure you're spreading it out properly. You can take a bit of water also and use it to spread any thick paint that I have. Sometimes you'll come across pieces of paper as you brush over it because of the friction. So you'll see paper start chipping out. If at all you do spot it, do remove it. Now, if you see, I'm using a book below it. Otherwise, I could have gotten, some sort of a mat and kept my paper on top so that my table doesn't get dirty. But the reason why I'm using a book or whatever I found is because I want to make this workshop as not just eco-friendly, but more accessible to the people at home or to the viewers at home, so that in case you do not have, you know, any sort of expensive material, we can always use something that we have right beside us. Okay, that should be good. I'll just lift this up like that. And move this book away. Now we need to let this dry before we can start painting over it. Now for this painting, the colors that I will be using, I will be using blue, yellow, and white. But if you see, there is green color in the reference as well. Now I won't be using a green that is already pre-made, or the green colors that we get in the bottles or tubes. We will create our own green color over here. And in most of my workshops, I try to in most of my workshops, I try to mix colors and create our own colors, so that for those of you who are at home, you can start practicing in this way and have more control over the different tints, the different hues, and it will give you a lot more confidence, you could say. Because back when I was studying painting, I did not know about all this color mixing. I just saw green. I took green, put it on the paper. I saw blue, took blue, maybe added a little bit of white, threw it on the paper, and I was like, okay, there you go, it's a painting. But then as I started to, you could say, understand the importance of mixing your own colors and the different types of, you could say, effects or the different variations of colors that you can get through this, I started to see a little bit more appreciation to it. And to my students and to the viewers, you all, I am following the same method of creating our own colors so that you get that confidence to have your own colors. Or even if you say you're short on green at home, or short on orange, or short on purple, and you do have yellow, red, and blue, you can create every other color. Now, yellow, red, and blue, these are the primary colors. So, by primary colors, what it means is that we cannot make these colors by mixing other colors, but we can make the remaining other colors that are there with just these three. Now we can check, okay, my painting is starting to dry. So if you want to check if it's dry, you can just tilt it this way and check for any reflections. So if you see any reflections, that means that the paper is still, or the paint is still very wet. Make sure that there's no piece of paper stuck on top. Okay. Now for the painting part, what we can do is, now we need to have a drawing down over here, right? So what I will do first is I will just quickly see whether this pencil is visible. So I can just simply shade it in between. Okay, so there is some shine coming onto it. Let me see if I can show you right here. There is some shine coming when I rub the graphite in this area. So that way, how this will help us is when we start drawing over this, the drawing won't be very visible where it disturbs the paint, but it will be visible enough for us to start a painting and paint over it. Now over here, what I can do is I can very roughly just mark out where I want each part of the drawing to be. Now if you look at the top area, the central top, we have the head starting from here and down a bit. Now I'm not using much pressure to this. I'm keeping it as light as possible. Now the drawing may not be very visible to you, but you can at least get an idea for the time being as to how we can do the drawing. Once I'm done with the drawing part, I can show you the final result of the drawing. I'll just lift it up this way, check if I can see it. Okay. Over here. I'm drawing a straight line so I can divide the head into equal halves. This will come down to almost the center. Now my paper is still a bit wet and it will be a little soft as well. So when I'm drawing this, I will go over it again and again, but with very less pressure. I think you can see it very faintly over here. I'll bring this down to almost the center and then take it in. Move it to the left. Okay, I can have the dusk over here. Say about that big. And the eye will be below the ear. So this is my ear. So this is the ear. And if we come a bit below it and move it to the left, we can see the top of the eye falls on this side. And the trunk as well, in a way, connects to the eye. I think right about there. And then I can draw this down. Okay, so let me try showing you. There, I think you can see the drawing shine over here. So I'll keep showing it to you as I proceed with the drawing. It's not visible. Okay, wait, let me. Okay, how about now? Over here you can see the eye, this side of the head, a bit of the tusk. Now what I'll do is I'll just quickly do this drawing so that I don't keep you all waiting. I'll do this drawing and then I will show you as much as I can. Okay, sorry about that. So I'll bring this tusk down. Take this a bit high. Right about there. Now since this is all black, it will be a bit difficult to see, but as soon as I finish this drawing, it will be entirely visible. But there. So now even though it's not visible, what I'm trying to do is show you that when we draw over black paint, the drawing won't be entirely visible, where once you start painting it can cause a bit of a disturbance. I'll put this part down. Over here I can add this area here. Okay, and we are done with the, okay, just this dusk is left in this area here also. Okay, now if I lift it up, there you can start seeing the drawing. I'll keep it this way for a couple of seconds. I hope the drawing is visible now in this angle, like that. So we can do a very light drawing over this. And then we can use a bit of the lighting and the reflection to have a look at our drawing. Okay, now we can start with the painting part. So I'll take my palette. Now I already have some colors from yesterday's workshop. So I will be using these colors itself that I have ready here. Keep the palette this side. Okay. Now we can start with the blue color that is there. I will take my brush. Now since I painted the paper black, I want to remove as much paint as I can. So I will mix it, I will clean it in the clean water. You can go back and forth a bit, 2-3 times. Okay, and now we can start. So I'll take some blue that I have. So let me tell you what all colors I'm using. I have black, which I have already used. I have blue color here. I'm using Prussian blue. We have crimson red and cadmium yellow. I'll mix a little bit of water. Maybe a bit more, as this paint is slightly thick. Now what I can do is I can just remove any excess paint that is there, and I will very roughly paint over this area here. Like that. So the ear comes all the way down here like this. Now I'm starting with the darker colors, and then I'll keep adding a bit of white into it. Now remember, sometimes it might look like you're painting, but it's just the water that is creating a reflection. So you want to make sure that you have enough paint in your brush. Okay, then now I'll just be applying this dark blue in areas that I see are dark. Like this area here also, where the trunk is. this part here a little bit in this area. Then a little bit over here. Now I can take a bit more blue and add very little white to it. I do not want this blue to be too bright as of yet. I can take this blue and apply it in these areas. A little bit over here. Now we want the brush strokes to be very spontaneous, like that. So quick long brush strokes. Add this area here also. Now the more color I add to this painting, the more visible it will be. Since this black is too strong, the blue is, you could say, hiding behind it. Since this blue is very similar to black, it can look like there is no blue color in here. You can take this up like that. Take a bit more blue. Down here in the middle. Can add a little bit in the dark areas. So right now I'm just painting the dark areas, and then I will go over the much lighter areas later on. So we're painting from dark to light. Now with very little paint on my brush, I'm going to keep a very transparent effect with this blue so that it feels like it is fading in and out of the background. You can see the painting now. And so this is a dark color. So as of right now, we can only see the reflection. But as we start going lighter and lighter, it will become more and more visible. And add a bit of water to this. And we can Now see, there is a little too much water. I do not want that much also. So I'll remove a bit of the paint. And then I can add these colors here. Maybe one more from the side and a little thicker one there. Okay, now we can start lightening it up a little more. So we'll finish the blue colors, and once you're done with the blue, then we can start with the yellowish greens. Now this will be a lot more visible. There you can start seeing it work. So I'll keep all the strokes very spontaneous and very fast paced. So I'm going to try not spending too much time on each stroke. Over here also, I think this we can take a little higher. I'll remove a bit of paint from this brush. Like that. Now I can add the same color in certain areas below also. Now the blue that is used in this reference is different to the blue I'm using right now. So you can use whichever blue you have available. We have ultramarine blue, which is very common when you buy paints. So you can use that as well. That there, a bit here, a little bit in this area as well. Then down the middle of the trunk. I can add a bit to this side as well. Now you can start seeing the eyes, a bit of the trunk, the ears starting to be visible. Then a little bit of the decoration as well. Now we'll be adding lighter and lighter colors. This won't be the final light color that is being added. take a bit more of this color, and I can add it to this part here. That there, little bit on these areas also. Make sure that it is centered. There, you can start seeing the depth take place. Then we can add a bit more white to this paint as well. And we'll see how much now. If you see, it's still very similar. So what I can do now is I can take a bit more white, a bit more blue also. I'll try to keep this part of the paint a little dry. I don't want too much water in it, so that I can have that very rough texture. Add a bit more blue here. And the only reason I keep adding blue to this is because I want the paint to be a bit thick. That's what I mean by that. I want it to be a bit thick. So when you're mixing a paint, you'll have to be a little thorough with it. There you go. And when you mix your paint in your palette, make sure you don't, mix it this way in the entire area. Or else what happens is your paint will spread, it will dry up, and you'll end up painting your palette rather than your painting. Okay, now I can add a bit here, just like some highlights. I'll remove a bit of this paint, keep it very faint in that sense. Maybe I can darken it just a little bit before I proceed with this color. Let me see. Maybe a little bit more. So if you look at this, let me just mix it. I have a dark color here and a light color here. So when I mixed it, I mixed only one side of the brush. Like that. I have a light color here and then a dark color on this side. Okay, this is a much better color for this area here. You can start adding this to only certain areas that would need it. Very gently, I'm going to add this part. Add a bit here. Yeah. So if I bring it closer, you can see that it is not smooth. I've kept it a little rough. Then a bit in the middle also. So I'm going with different pressures. So I'm pressing it down a little bit and then going up and down, just changing the pressure as I go down to get that, very rough, very textured effect. That there. Bring this part down as well. Let me just go back and see my drawing. Okay, like that. Then I can add a slight rim light, you could say, around that area. This part also, the decor that is there. Very roughly. Okay, now we can start seeing the painting come to life. This area can have a small touch to it. Okay, now I can take this lighter color that is there. Again, now I'm not going to add any water to this. I want to keep it as thick as possible. I think I can add a bit more white. It's become dark a bit. We'll add a bit of white. I'll add this to the part on top. A little bit here. Small touch on the eyelid. And the top eyelid as well. The tusk. Remember, if you want this type of effect, do not add water to your paint. You want to keep it to a minimal. That over there. You can keep it patchy. Don't try to smooth things over. It might not look great while you are painting it, but by the time you're done, you will see the effects take place. Brings up like that, carry it down. And for this necklace, very gently going to add this part, very subtle, so that even if I lighten it up, the black color behind it can maintain that darkness or that gradients to it. Very roughly at the top as well, with very minimal pressure. I'm going to give it a bit of a highlight. And that's starting to look great. So if this is this, I can flatten it out a bit, very gently. I don't want this paint to be very strong also. So even if like a dot comes, that is plenty for me. Okay, I think when it comes to the blue, this should be plenty. What I can do is I can take a bit of the darker blue that I have lying around and just give certain areas a bit of a touch up. Take a bit more blue, mix it in here. Yeah, I think that color looks great. Okay. That over there. In the trunk, I think this side, in a very subtle way, I will add this. A bit on the forehead. Okay, now I will clean my brush. Is this view good for you all, or do you want me to go back to the slightly zoomed out view? If you want me to change the camera view, I can do that. And if you feel like this one is okay, you can let me know in the comments as well. Okay, now I can take my yellow. Now I'll start with very little yellow because yellow is pretty strong. I'm not going to add much water to this. You can take a bit of blue also. And I'll start with the green color. Now the more blue you add to the yellow, the more darker your green is going to get. Now let's see, okay, this area here I can experiment with this green. This is near the trunk. So I'm keeping my brush as dry as possible. I've barely mixed any water. I haven't mixed actually any water in this paint because I wanted to have a very rough texture to it. Maybe if your paint does not spread, then you can take a very tiny amount of water, like just about a drop. I can have a bit of blue here also. Mix it up with this green. Bring this area down. Yellow ochre. Yellow ochre. No, yellow ochre is different. Yellow ochre has a bit of a brownish tint in it. So instead of yellow ochre, you can use cadmium yellow or lemon yellow also. So one of the reasons why, so I personally prefer having cadmium yellow because the yellow, it's a bit soft, it's a bit, let me just bring this closer to the camera, or I can, yeah, so this is what I'm using cadmium yellow medium. It can be any, we even have chrome cadmium yellow, or we just have cadmium yellow also. Because yellow ochre, the thing about that is it has a bit of a muddy texture. It doesn't have the brightness of this yellow, or of this yellow ochre. Sorry, cadmium yellow. But if you see lemon yellow, for myself, I find that a little too bright or a little too strong. So because of that, personally, I do not use lemon yellow. But if you do have lemon yellow lying around, you can always use that. You can experiment and see with different types of yellow. Now I can fill this area here. Now in this gap, we can bring in the green. So this dark color will give a sense of depth. And the reason why I am not adding a lot of water to it is because I want this green to be very subtle. I do not want very clean lines with this right now. I want it to have a bit of a very rough effect. Thank you, Raksa. Is this camera view okay for everyone? Or would you prefer this camera view? You can let me know in the comments and then I can set it up according to your preference. Now this green as well, I will apply it in the ears or on the edge of the ear. It can go excuse me, outwards. A bit of green on this side. And a bit for the hair. I'm not sure if this is like a hair or a crown, but since it looks like hair to me, I'll just be calling it hair. If I'm wrong, you can just correct me in the comments. And then a little bit here. Now you can see it start to take shape. It's starting to have a little bit of that roundness, you could say. Now we can start lightening up the green. Now if I want to lighten up the green, I'll take my blue and I'll take yellow. I'll mix this green again. I think this should be brighter. So we can experiment it right now. Now we can search for the area that has one of the brightest yellow colors. And we can experiment with this green. So I'm taking this ear on the right side and I'm checking whether this green is okay for me or not. Whether or not that green should be applied over here. Because since we are going to apply a lighter color, this color would be covered up. You can add a bit of this on the side, okay. Like that. So is this previous one is fine? Okay, fine. I'll zoom in a bit. Okay, great. Now I can add. Now remember, the center area is going to be darker, whereas the outer area where the decor comes from, or the decoration, that part is going to be brighter. So keeping that in mind, how we can go with our strokes is we can push it down hard over here, and as we're coming to the center, just flick it. You'll get that nice smooth gradients here also. That should be good. A bit at the top is in the head as well. Maybe a bit on either side. Now this technique is called layering. And I speak about layering in almost every acrylic workshop that I've done. So layering is one of the best ways you can give depth to your painting. Or if not one, it is the best way. And this technique is used not only in acrylics, it is used in every medium that you can paint in. Whether it may be watercolor, oil colors, acrylic paints, gouache, soft pastels, hard pastels, oil pastels, pencil, charcoal. It's just the only difference would be the way, sorry, the way you go about it. This one I can bring down as well, and a little bit of green on that side. Okay, now before I move on to the next color, every time before I move on to the next color, I will always try to double check and see whether I have applied everything correctly or not. Okay, now I can lighten this up quite a bit. Okay, this will be a little too much, because remember, yellow color already has white in it, so when we mix it in green, we do not need to add a lot of white to it. Okay, I'll try with this one first. Let's see with this area here. Okay, this seems like a good color. Now, wherever the color is thick, or wherever there's, like if you look at this area here in the reference, we have a much wider, a much thicker yellow color. So I'll go for those areas first, so that once this paint starts to get over or starts to reduce in quantity, it will start becoming less visible and less easier to spread, which I can then apply to the areas in between where I just want a very subtle gradient to it. Over here also. So if you see, I'll press it down like that and then a quick swipe. Same thing over here, press it down and then a quick swipe. Down on the left on this area also. Like that. If you have a lot of paint but it is not spreading, then you can just put a drop of water, like the tiniest drop you can possibly get with your paintbrush. Put this on the eyelid. Over here, just one very light, very subtle stroke. Now, you probably can't see it, but if I bring it closer this way, it's right here near my thumb. It's a very small stroke which will add to the entire painting. A bit on this eyelid as well. Now since this color is spreading very easily, I will go for the larger areas first. Okay, now if you see, it's not really coming down, right? So then I can go for the areas in between, where we need to add light but not too much light, like this part as well. And then on the forehead, we can add this. We can add this here also. So now we're reaching the end of our workshop. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, or if you have any personal questions that may not be related to this workshop, but regarding acrylic painting, watercolor painting, or any medium that you may have a question for, let me know in the comments and I will answer it. Okay, I'll just double check. Be a bit on this area, a bit in this area as well. Very subtle. Now I can apply a bit of pressure. So let me show you what I mean by pressure. I'll keep it this way and you can see how much the brush is bending. I'll keep it like that. See, I am applying pressure to it, but there isn't much paint coming out. It's because the paint is starting to dry. And before that paint can dry, I am just spreading out whatever wet paint is there. Okay, now I'll take a lot more yellow. And I'll just add it in. Now these are going to be our highlights. Our highlights don't come everywhere. They come only in certain areas and in very small amounts, at least depending on what you're painting. So if you're painting a flat surface which has highlights, it might most likely come on the edge, or if your lighting is from the top, then the entire surface would be light. Over here, this part as well. Oh, that's looking lovely. Teeny bit on this side, on this eyelid. Ooh, these eyes look very realistic. So once you start to understand how you can play with lighting, realism will be a lot more easier to achieve. So once you know how to place, so we have light, middle and dark tones, and then those tones get subdivided even more, where you have your darker darks, your middle darks, and then your lighter darks, and then you have your darker mid, your middle mids, and your lighter mids, and so on. So it's basically simplifying the simplified already. A little bit here. Okay. I hope there are some of you that are trying out this painting as well while I'm doing it. And if at all, say you're not at home, or you do not have your materials around you right now, you can always come back and rewatch this workshop. And if there are certain areas that you already know or you understood, you can skip through some areas of the workshop and focus on the painting aspect, or if there is something that I said that you might have found useful, you can even listen to that part. Okay, anywhere else? I think over here. Okay, I think that should be good. I'll bring this a bit closer. Wait, I think I can. Okay. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. This is something we try to do, something different and something unique. So, even though we do acrylic painting, it shouldn't get a bit boring where we just see, the same thing again and again that we see on, other places. So in this workshop, we try to not just paint, but a different approach or a different technique, you could say. So we painted the paper black first entirely, and then we started adding the colors lighter and lighter and lighter. So we started with black, then dark blue, then a slightly medium blue, and then we went to a much lighter blue. Then we started with dark green, a medium green, and then a yellowish green, and then yellow to top it off. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this workshop and got to, learn something new as well. You've had some of your own personal questions regarding painting, and some were regarding the workshop that I'm currently doing. And this interaction has actually been quite a lot of fun. I appreciate the feedback that I've been getting. So if you would like to see more of these types of workshops, you can visit our website, or you can download the app, which is all in the description down below. And today in the evening, we will be having another unique workshop. It will not be painting related, but if you have any younger siblings or any children, you can come along with them and have a look at what we have to offer. I hope you enjoyed this workshop, and I will see you in the evening. Thank you.